the world, I was just the guy who cleans up death. To my wife, I was just a paycheck. But they forgot one thing. I notice everything, including the hotel receipt she threw in our trash. The smell hit me before I even opened the door. 3 weeks of decomposition in a hoarder's living room. That's a particular kind of hell. Sweet underneath like fruit gone wrong. Ammonia on top from the body's own chemistry. And cutting through both, the sharp bite of the enzymatic cleaner I'd already sprayed around the perimeter. I knelt on what was left of the subfloor, my sawzall biting through wood that had turned black from fluids I'd rather not think about. My respirator fogged with each breath. Through the window, I could see my CleanSlate van parked at the curb, the logo sun-faded after 8 years of Ohio weather. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't check it. Couldn't. This work requires full attention. One mistake, one missed spot, and the smell comes back. Always comes back. I cut out a section the size of a coffee table, bagged it, tagged it, moved to the next section. The deceased had been a woman, 73, no next of kin. The county called us when the neighbors complained. That was 3 days ago. I'd been here since Monday, working alone because my crew was handling a suicide cleanup across town. By 7:47, I'd removed enough contaminated material to fill the van twice over. My back ached. My knees had gone numb an hour ago. But the subfloor was clean now, down to the joists, ready for reconstruction. I checked my phone. Linda, asking when I'd be home. I didn't answer. The shop sits in an industrial park off Route 9, sandwiched between a plumbing supply warehouse and a place that rebuilds transmissions. Nothing fancy. Concrete floors, industrial drains, the kind of ventilation system that costs more than most people's cars. I stood under the shower at 9:30, water running gray, then brown, then finally clear. The soap is medical grade, meant for surgeons. I scrubbed my forearms until they turned pink, watching the suds swirl down the drain. My coworker had left an hour ago, but I stayed. The ritual matters. Shampoo twice, soap 3 times, clean clothes from the sealed bag in my locker, the one Linda never touches, never washes, never even acknowledges exists. I checked myself in the mirror. 6'4", 240 on a good day, maybe 235 now. Hands like dinner plates, my mother used to say. Hands that could crush but never have, never will. I looked tired. I looked like a man who spends his days with the dead. I drove home. 10:15. The front door stuck like it always does. Humidity swells the frame every summer, and I keep meaning to plane it down. Inside, the house smelled wrong. Not bad wrong, different wrong. Linda stood in the kitchen, dressed for somewhere that wasn't here. Black dress, the one she bought for her cousin's wedding 2 years ago, tag still on until tonight apparently. Heels by the door, not the sensible ones she wears to work, but the tall ones that make her calves look like magazine photos. And perfume, something floral and expensive that I'd never smelled on her before, not in 11 years of marriage. She wrinkled her nose as I walked in. "You still smell like it." I didn't. I knew I didn't. 3 showers, medical-grade soap, clean clothes from a sealed bag. "Sorry," I said anyway, making myself smaller despite my size. "I'll shower again if..." "Book club ran late." She grabbed her purse from the counter. "I'm exhausted." It was Tuesday. Her book club meets on Thursdays. I said nothing. I've learned that silence is easier. Silence doesn't start arguments. Silence doesn't make her roll her eyes and say, "I'm being difficult." The door closed behind her. Her car started. Headlights swept across the living room window, then disappeared. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, smelling perfume that cost more than I make in a day. The trash is my job. Always has been. Linda says the bins are too heavy, and I've never argued. 11 years of taking out the trash, 11 years of not arguing. I dragged the kitchen bag through the garage and it caught on a nail sticking out from the workbench. The plastic tore. Coffee grounds spilled across the concrete. Junk mail. An empty wine bottle I didn't remember seeing in the recycling. And a receipt. Folded twice. Fluttering to the floor like a dead leaf. I picked it up automatically. The same way I catalog evidence at crime scenes. Muscle memory. Trained response. The brain working faster than conscious thought. The Bellamy Inn. Room 214. 3 nights ago. Saturday. $189. Paid with a Chase Sapphire card ending in 4491. I don't have a Chase Sapphire card. Linda's maiden name was Fitch. I stood in the garage for 4 minutes. I know because I counted my breaths, a technique I use at bad scenes. The ones with children. The ones that would break me if I let them. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. My hands didn't shake. My pulse stayed even. I recognized this feeling, the clinical detachment that descends when I'm about to cut out contaminated drywall, when emotion would only slow the work. I took out my phone, photographed the receipt from 3 angles, front, back, the fold lines that showed how carefully someone had tried to hide it. Checked the timestamp on the photo, 10:43 p.m., Tuesday, May 17th. Then I folded the receipt exactly as I'd found it, placed it back in the torn bag, tied the bag closed, and set it in the bin. Evidence preservation, scene documentation, worked the problem. Linda was in bed when I went inside, scrolling her phone, the expensive perfume still hanging in the air like an accusation. The sheets were the good ones, the ones she only puts on when we're expecting company. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. 11 years of marriage, June 2013 to now. Some habits don't die easy. "Good night," I said. My voice didn't waver. She didn't look up. "You should shower again." I already showered twice. I showered a 3rd time, standing under water that was too hot, letting it turn my skin red. I thought about Saturday. Linda said she was visiting her mother. Her mother lives 40 minutes away in Sandusky. The Bellamy Inn is 12 minutes from our house. I dried off. I lay down. I didn't sleep. 2 a.m. The ceiling had a water stain I'd never noticed before, shaped like a kidney, probably from when the upstairs bathroom leaked last winter. I stared at it and thought about decomposition. In my work, I've learned to read timelines. Blowfly larvae tell you days. Skin slippage tells you weeks. Adipocere, that waxy substance that forms when fat breaks down, tells you months. A body decomposes in predictable stages if you know what to look for. Linda's breathing was steady beside me, the sleep of the innocent, my grandmother would have said. I realized I'd been missing the signs. The late nights starting... when? 8 months ago? 9? The new gym membership she never seems sweaty from. The phone always face down on the counter, always locked, always within arm's reach. My marriage had been decomposing. I just hadn't been reading the scene. I lay there until dawn, and I made a decision. Time to start reading. Wednesday, 6:15 a.m. Linda sleeps late on her days off, always has, even before whatever this is started. I moved through the house silently, a skill I learned from crime scenes. You don't disturb what you're studying. You observe. You document. You understand before you act. The filing cabinet in the home office opened without a sound. I'd oiled the runners last month. Tax returns from last year. Joint account statements. The mortgage paperwork we signed in 2016. Everything looked normal. Every document exactly where it should be. I photographed each one anyway, the way I photograph scenes before remediation, establishing shots, detail shots, context shots. You never know what matters until later. Then I opened my laptop, our Chase account, our savings at First Federal, our checking. Every transaction accounted for, every dollar tracked. The Bellamy Inn didn't appear anywhere. The card ending in 4491 didn't exist in our records. 7:30 a.m. Coffee going cold in front of me. The kitchen was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the clock above the stove. The math was simple. A credit card I don't know about means an application I never saw. Statements going somewhere I don't check. A billing address that isn't this house. This is an impulse. This is infrastructure. Someone built this carefully. Over time. Specifically so I wouldn't find it. I thought about the scenes I've cleaned where families said, "We had no idea." The secret addictions, the hidden lives, the careful architectures of deception that only collapse when someone dies. When the cleaning crew shows up and finds the second phone in the nightstand, the letters in the locked drawer, the evidence that rewrites everything the survivors thought they knew. Upstairs, Linda stirred. The bed creaked. Water ran in the bathroom. I rinsed my mug. I left for work. The meth lab was in a foreclosed duplex on the east side, one of those neighborhoods where the factories closed 20 years ago and never came back. I suited up in Tyvek, grateful for work that required full attention. My crew arrived at 8:45, 2 guys who'd been with CleanSlate for 3 years now. Good workers. Reliable. They didn't ask why I was quiet. I'm always quiet. The chemical damage was extensive. Whoever cooked here had been at it for months, maybe longer. The walls were stained yellow from phosphine gas. The carpets would have to go. The drywall, too, probably down to the studs. I photographed everything for the insurance claim. Established shots. Detail shots. The patterns of contamination that told the story of what happened here. Evidence tells the truth that people won't. Stains don't lie. Patterns don't lie. I needed to find Linda's patterns. I needed statements. Records. Proof. I needed to work this like a scene. 6 p.m. I drove home the long way past Mercer's scrapyard on Route 9. The mountains of crushed cars caught the evening light, rust and chrome glinting like something almost beautiful. I've known Gus Mercer for 15 years. We grab beers sometimes, sit in lawn chairs between the wrecks, talk about nothing important. Tonight, I didn't stop. I was thinking about what I knew. Linda has a hidden credit card in her maiden name. She's paying for hotel rooms on Saturdays. She's wearing perfume that costs more than I make in a day. She's lying about book club, about visiting her mother, about where she goes and who she sees. I was thinking about what I didn't know. How long? With who? How deep? I pulled into the driveway. Linda's car was gone. A note on the counter, her handwriting sharp and slanted. Dinner with girlfriends. Don't wait up. Asterisk. I made a sandwich. I ate it standing at the sink. I didn't taste it. 11:30 p.m. Lying awake again, but my mind was working differently now. I'd stopped feeling and started thinking. The hidden credit card means hidden statements. Hidden statements mean a hidden address. A P.O. box, maybe, or somewhere else entirely. Someone else's address. One affair would be painful. Just pain. The regular kind. The kind that breaks you and then you heal, or you don't. But this level of infrastructure, this suggests something more calculated. I thought about our house, the equity we'd built over 8 years, our savings, not much, but something, and my company. CleanSlate Biohazard Remediation LLC, valued at $847,000, according to the accountant who did our taxes last year. All the licenses in my name alone, all the OSHA certifications, all the EPA permits. I thought about Linda's recent questions. How does the business work if something happens to you? What would I get if we, if things changed? Have you thought about retirement? About what we'd split? I'd answered honestly, the way I always do. Told her everything was in my name because I'd started it before we married. Told her the certifications couldn't transfer. Told her the contracts were tied to me personally. She'd nodded, Made notes on her phone. Said she was just curious. Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. The county line duplex looked like every other abandoned property I'd seen. Boarded windows, weeds chest high, the particular stillness of a place where nothing good happened anymore. I suited up in the van. Tyvek coverall, respirator, double gloves. The meth lab smell hit me before I even touched the door handle. Ammonia so sharp it made my eyes water through the mask. Lithium residue. That particular chemical sweetness of pseudoephedrine cooked down to poison. Inside was worse. The cooks had stripped the place when they left, took the equipment, left the contamination. Walls yellowed from fumes. Ceiling tiles sagging with moisture damage. I photographed everything first, documenting the scope before I started cutting. Scraping contaminated drywall is meditative work, if you let it be. You can't rush it. Miss a patch, someone moves in later, starts getting headaches, nosebleeds, worse. The chemicals soak deep. You have to go deeper. My mind kept drifting while my hands worked. The Bellamy Inn, room 214, $189 per night. I forced myself back to the job, photographed the next section, marked the contamination boundaries with blue tape, started cutting. This work taught me patience 15 years ago. You don't rush biohazard remediation. You miss something, someone gets sick, someone dies maybe. The stakes are too high for shortcuts. Same principle applies to other things I was learning. You miss something in a marriage, you get blindsided. Different stakes, same patience required. By noon, I had 6 contractor bags of contaminated material sealed and tagged for disposal. The duplex would need another 2 days minimum. I drove to the shop, showered twice, changed into fresh clothes. Still felt like the smell clung to my skin. Linda wasn't home when I got there. Wasn't home a lot lately, I was noticing now that I was looking. Thursday evening, June 22nd. I started my audit of the household trash, not pawing through desperately like some jealous husband in a bad movie, systematically, the way I document a scene. Every item photographed before removal, chain of custody, even for garbage. Tonight's findings sat on my workbench in the garage, each piece bagged in labeled Ziplocs. A parking garage stub from the downtown municipal lot, time-stamped 2:47 p.m. last Tuesday. Linda worked in the suburbs, at an insurance agency off Route 40. No reason for her to be downtown on a Tuesday afternoon. A crumpled receipt from Cafe Marchetti. 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, $87 with tip. I'd never heard of the place. Looked it up on my phone. Upscale Italian, the kind of restaurant where they don't list prices on the menu. Not the kind of place Linda and I went. We did Applebee's on anniversaries, maybe. A wrapper from Bellafina Chocolates. The expensive kind, sold at specialty shops downtown. $12 for 4 pieces, according to my quick search. Linda complained when I bought the good coffee beans. I bagged everything, labeled it, stored it in a lockbox behind my tool chest. My hand stayed steady the whole time. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything between my ribs and left just the bones. Saturday. A bathroom in a ranch house on Elm Street. The elderly woman had slipped getting out of the tub, hit her head on the faucet. Bled out slowly over hours, probably. Her daughter found her 3 days later when she stopped answering the phone. The blood had oxidized to brown by then, soaked into the grout between the tiles, the caulk around the tub, the baseboards. 3 days in summer heat. The smell hit me through the respirator. I worked in silence, respectful of the space. This woman had lived here 40 years, raised her kids, probably took baths in this same tub for decades. Now I was scrubbing her final moments off the tile. She died slowly, I thought. Alone. Nobody noticed until it was too late. The daughter waited in the living room while I worked. 4 hours to make the bathroom look new again. When I finished, she came in and just stared. Started crying. Thanked me 3 times. "You gave me back my bathroom," she said. I thought I'd have to sell the house. I told her I was sorry for her loss. Meant it. Packed up my equipment and left. Driving home, I kept thinking about that woman. 3 days. Nobody noticed for 3 days. Linda's blouse was draped over a chair in the bedroom when I got home. Silk, pale blue, the nice one she saved for special occasions. I leaned close without touching it. Cologne, sandalwood and cedar. Expensive, probably. Definitely not mine. I wear Old Spice when I wear anything at all. I catalog smells professionally. It's part of the job. You learn to identify decomposition stages, chemical residues, the particular mustiness of mold versus mildew. You train your nose the way a sommelier trains their palate. This cologne wasn't mine. Wasn't anyone's who should be near my wife's clothing. I photographed the blouse. Noted the date and time. Added it to my documentation. Monday morning, June 26th. My phone rang while I was loading equipment for a job. Hoarder clean-out in Riverside. The family finally dealing with their father's estate. Carla's voice was careful, the way she got when something was wrong. My sister had been doing the books for CleanSlate since I started the company. She knew the business inside and out. Hank, something weird happened last week. I set down the enzyme sprayer. What's up? Linda called the office, asking about the business structure, ownership percentages, asset valuations, that kind of thing. The morning air felt suddenly colder. What'd you tell her? Just basics, that everything's in your name, the licenses, certs, contracts, all of it. She seemed surprised. Carla paused. Asked me to send her copies of the incorporation documents. I gripped the phone tighter. Did you? No. Felt wrong, you know. She's your wife, but she's never asked about this stuff before. Not once in 11 years. Another pause. Should I have sent them? I stared at the van, at the CleanSlate logo I designed myself 12 years ago. A clean white circle emerging from gray. Renewal after tragedy. That was the whole point. No, I said finally. You did right. I hung up. Stood there in the parking lot for a long time. Linda wasn't just cheating. She was planning something. Building something. And she'd been doing it for months while I cleaned up other people's messes and came home too tired to notice my own life falling apart. Wednesday afternoon. Mercer's scrapyard on Route 9, 3 miles outside town. The familiar landscape of crushed cars and rusting metal calmed me the way it always did. Mountains of compressed sedans, stacked refrigerators, the skeletal remains of farm equipment. Everything here had been something once. Someone's prized possession, their transportation, their livelihood. Now it was scrap, waiting to be melted down and made into something new. Gus Mercer saw my truck pull in, disappeared into his office shack, came back with 2 cups of coffee. Black, no sugar. He remembered. We sat on overturned oil drums, watching the crane operator drop a flattened Buick onto a pile. The crash echoed across the yard. Neither of us spoke for 10 minutes. Gus wasn't a talker. Neither was I. That's why we got along. Finally, I asked, "You ever watch something die slow, Gus? So slow you don't notice until it's already gone." He surveyed the rusting hulks around us. Decades of someone's prized possessions reduced to scrap. Cars that carried families on vacations, trucks that hauled loads across the country, vans that probably held some kid's first kiss in the back seat. Every day, son. He spit tobacco juice into the dirt. Every day. We sat there until the coffee went cold. He didn't ask what I meant. Didn't need to. That night I pulled records from my home office safe. Linda was at her book club, or whatever she called it now. Business licenses, my name only. Henry Hank Duval. OSHA certifications. Bloodborne pathogen training, hazardous waste handling, confined space entry. All registered to me personally. EPA permits, sole registrant. Every contract with hospitals, police departments, property management companies, signed by me alone. The relationships I'd built over 15 years. The trust I'd earned by showing up at 3 a.m. when someone needed a crime scene cleaned before their family arrived. I structured it this way 8 years ago on an accountant's advice. Liability protection, simpler taxes, easier to manage. I never imagined it would matter for anything else. CleanSlate Biohazard Remediation LLC was worth $847,000 on paper. That's what the business valuation said anyway. The trucks, the equipment, the client contracts, the projected revenue. But without my licenses, without my certifications, without my professional credentials, the trucks were just trucks. The equipment was just equipment. The contracts were just paper that nobody could legally fulfill. The business was me. I photographed everything, every document, every certificate, every contract. Made notes about where the originals were stored. Linda thought she was going to take half of $847,000. She'd done the math, probably. $423,500. Enough to start over with her financial advisor boyfriend. She didn't understand what she was trying to take. Friday, June 30th. I remembered Marlene Voss while I was cleaning a meth house bathroom. 2 years ago, I'd cleaned her husband's suicide scene. Shotgun in the garage. The kind of job that stays with you. Not the gore, I'm used to that. But the small details. The family photos still hanging on the walls. The half-finished woodworking project on the bench. The life interrupted. I worked that scene with more care than usual. Took my time. Made sure the garage looked like a garage again, not a crime scene. When I finished, you couldn't tell anything had happened there. She sent me a handwritten thank you note afterward. Said I gave her back her home. Said she could park her car in the garage again without seeing what she'd found. Marlene was a county morgue dispatcher back then. But I'd heard she went back to school, got her law degree. Family law, someone said. I called her office that afternoon. Explained I needed legal advice about protecting business assets. Kept it vague. She remembered me immediately. Mr. Duval, her voice softened. You gave me back my garage. You gave me back my home. I'm sorry to bother you, ma'am. Come in Monday, whatever you need. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. Monday, July 3rd, 10 a.m. Marlene's office was modest but organized. Law books on the shelves, family photos on the desk, a small plant on the windowsill that looked well tended. She'd rebuilt her life after tragedy. I could see it in the space. Careful, intentional, hopeful. She listened without interrupting as I explained everything. The receipt from the Bellamy Inn, the hidden credit card in Linda's maiden name, Chase Sapphire ending in 4491, registered to Linda Fitch. The cologne on her blouse, the questions about business assets, the call to Carla about ownership percentages. When I finished, Marlene was quiet for a long moment. Her pen tapped against her notepad. Before I advise you, I need to check something. Give me 48 hours. She made calls that afternoon. Contacts at the courthouse, colleagues who tracked divorce filings, professional networking, nothing illegal, just people who knew people, the way small towns worked. By Wednesday morning, she had an answer. It was worse than I'd imagined. Wednesday afternoon, July 5th. Marlene called me into her office. Her face was serious. Linda has consulted with 3 divorce attorneys in this county over the past 4 months. She looked at her notes. Patricia Kellerman specifically has been retained. 4 months, since March. While I was cleaning crime scenes, she was building a case. While I was coming home exhausted, trying to be a good husband, she was planning her exit. While I was sleeping next to her, she was dreaming about taking half my life's work. She's planning to claim CleanSlate as marital property, Marlene continued. Standard approach, argue that your labor during marriage increased its value, therefore she's entitled to half. I thought about the $847,000 valuation. Half would be $423,500. What do we do? Marlene leaned forward, her expression shifting, something like satisfaction in her eyes. Here's what Linda doesn't understand. She's focused on the company's market value, the trucks, equipment, client contracts. But CleanSlate isn't a restaurant or a retail store. It's a licensed biohazard remediation service. She pulled out my documentation, spread it across her desk. Every license, every OSHA certification, every EPA permit is registered solely to you. Without those credentials, the business can't legally operate. The trucks can't roll. The contracts can't be fulfilled. The clients have no one certified to do the work. I stared at the papers. My name, over and over. Henry Duval. Henry Duval. Henry Duval. So the business is essentially worthless without you personally attached to it. Marlene smiled, thin and sharp. She can claim half the assets, the physical equipment, maybe some accounts receivable. But she can't claim your professional qualifications. She can't claim your expertise. She can't claim the 15 years of relationships you've built. I sat back, let it sink in. She doesn't know that yet, Marlene added. Patricia Kellerman is a good attorney, but she handles standard divorces, house, cars, retirement accounts. She's never dealt with a specialized trade like biohazard remediation. That evening, I sat in my truck outside our house. Linda's car was in the driveway. Through the kitchen window, I could see her on the phone, pacing, gesturing, probably talking to Patricia Kellerman, probably discussing strategy, probably counting the money she thought she was going to get. She'd been planning this for months. 4 months of consultations, of questions, of building her case. While I worked 70-hour weeks, while I cleaned up other people's tragedies, while I came home exhausted to a wife who was already gone. I didn't feel rage. I expected rage, earned it maybe. But sitting there in my truck, watching her pace and plan, I felt something colder. Clarity. She thought she was the predator here, the smart one, the one with the plan. She thought I was just the big dumb guy who cleaned up dead bodies, too tired to notice what was happening in his own house. She'd miscalculated. I'd spent 15 years reading scenes, blood spatter patterns, decomposition timelines, the stories that evidence tells. I knew how to piece together what happened in a room long after everyone left. I knew how this story ended. I didn't go inside yet. Instead, I drove to a 24-hour copy shop across town, made duplicates of every document, licenses, certifications, contracts, the photographs of receipts, everything. 3 complete sets. Then I drove to a bank I'd never used before, rented a safety deposit box, stored the originals. It was nearly midnight when I finally pulled into my driveway. The bedroom light was off. Linda was asleep, probably dreaming of $423,500 that would never materialize. Dreaming of her financial advisor boyfriend and the life they'd build on my money. I lay beside her in the dark, breathing steadily, planning. She'd been building a case for months, consulting attorneys, asking questions, gathering information. She thought she understood what she was taking, but she was building on a foundation she didn't understand. She saw the trucks, the equipment, the contracts. She didn't see the licenses, the certifications, the credentials that made all of it legal. And foundations, I knew professionally, are everything. You build a house on contaminated ground, it doesn't matter how nice the kitchen is. The whole thing is rotten from the bottom up. Linda's case was built on contaminated ground. She just didn't know it yet. The house sat at the end of Maple Court, third one from the corner. White siding, blue shutters, American flag hanging limp in the still morning air. Hedges trimmed neat, lawn mowed in diagonal stripes. The kind of place where people wave to their neighbors and pretend everything's fine. Tuesday, 6:47 a.m. I pulled the CleanSlate van into the driveway and killed the engine. The responding officer met me on the porch. Young guy, maybe 25, with that gray pallor they all get the first few times. He kept swallowing hard. "Husband found out about an affair," he said, reading from his notes like he needed the distance. "Shot her in the bedroom, then himself. Neighbors heard it around 11 last night." I nodded, didn't say anything. What was there to say? "Bodies are already at the morgue. Scene's released, He trailed off, looking at the front door like it might bite him. "It's bad in there." "They usually are." I pulled my equipment from the van. Tyvek suit, respirator, enzymatic cleaners, biohazard bags. The tools of my trade laid out neat in their cases. I suited up on the front lawn while a neighbor watched from across the street, coffee mug frozen halfway to her lips. Inside, the house smelled like copper and gunpowder and something else, that sweet, sick undertone of fresh death. I followed the smell to the master bedroom. The morning light came through the blinds in horizontal stripes, catching the arterial spray on the far wall. High-velocity spatter, classic pattern. He'd used a shotgun. The spray arced across the cream-colored paint in a dark crescent, droplets decreasing in size as they traveled from the point of impact. I stood there longer than I should have. The husband, I didn't know his name, didn't want to, had probably been a normal guy once. Loved his wife, paid his mortgage, coached Little League maybe, fixed the garbage disposal when it broke. Then something cracked inside him, and this is where it ended. I pulled on my respirator and got to work. The scrub brush moved in slow circles. Enzymatic cleaner broke down the proteins, turned the blood into something I could wipe away. My shoulders burned after the first hour. The copper smell seeped through my respirator anyway. It always does, eventually. I caught my reflection in the bedroom mirror. A large man in a white Tyvek suit, surrounded by death, face hidden behind the respirator, hands steady. I thought about Linda, about Derek, about my own hands. They're big hands, strong hands. I can crush a beer can flat without thinking about it. I can lift a grown man's body when the situation requires it. The thought arrived before I could stop it. What my hands could do to Derek Ashworth's throat. How easy it would be. How satisfying. I dropped the scrub brush. My breath came fast, fogging the respirator. I backed away from the wall, from my own reflection, from the thought itself. My heart hammered against my ribs. This is how it starts. This is how a normal guy ends up painting his bedroom walls with his wife's blood. I sat down on the floor, right there in the middle of the crime scene, and made myself breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth, the way they taught us in the OSSA training for when the scenes get to you. I am not that man. I will never be that man. But God help me for just a second. I understood him. I got home late that evening. The house was dark except for the kitchen light, a single yellow rectangle visible through the window as I pulled into the driveway. Linda sat at the table, scrolling her phone. Didn't look up when I walked in. "Dinner's in the fridge," she said, flat, like she was talking to a delivery driver. I stood in the doorway. I'd showered at the office, twice, but I could still smell the industrial cleaner on my skin. Could still see that arterial spray when I closed my eyes. I wanted to say something, anything. "How was your day? I missed you. I'm scared of what's happening to us." But the words wouldn't form. They never did. Linda glanced up finally. Her eyes moved over me like I was furniture. "You're tracking something on the floor." I looked down at my boots. Clean. Spotless. I checked them 3 times before leaving the van. She just wanted me gone. "Sorry," I said. The word came out automatically, the way it always did. But she'd already gone back to her phone. I stood there another 30 seconds. Then I went to the fridge, ate cold meatloaf standing over the sink, and went to bed alone. Wednesday night, I sat on the edge of my boy's bed. He looked up at me with those big brown eyes. My eyes, everyone said. and asked the question I'd been dreading. "Dad, why doesn't Mom talk to you anymore?" The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I opened my mouth, closed it. What could I say? "Your mother is leaving us. She loves someone else. She's been planning this for months while I cleaned up other people's tragedies." "Sometimes grown-ups have hard times," I managed. My voice sounded strange, even to me. "But I love you. That never changes. You understand?" He nodded, but I could see he didn't believe me. Kids are smarter than we give them credit for. They read rooms the same way I read crime scenes. After I turned off the light, I stood in the hallway for 10 minutes. Couldn't move. My feet had turned to concrete. The house was quiet. Linda was in the living room, watching something on her laptop with headphones in. Probably texting Derek. Probably planning the next phase of whatever this was. I went to the garage and sat in my truck until midnight. By Friday, I'd slept maybe 9 hours total since Monday. 6 pounds gone. I could feel my wedding ring loose on my finger. My hands shook when I held my coffee, and I had to set it down before anyone noticed. The meth lab cleanup in the industrial district should have been routine. 3rd one this month. I knew the protocol cold. But I missed a contaminated section behind the water heater. The property manager called at 4 p.m., screaming about chemical residue and liability and lawsuits. I had to drive back, redo the work for free, apologize 6 different ways while he stood over me with his arms crossed. Afterward, I sat in the van with the engine off. The industrial district stretched out around me. Empty warehouses, chain-link fences, weeds pushing through cracked concrete. A fitting landscape. My phone buzzed. Text from Carla. "Invoice discrepancies in the Hartley account. Can you call me?" I stared at the message for 5 minutes. Couldn't focus enough to answer. Everything was slipping. The business I'd built from nothing. The reputation I'd earned one crime scene at a time. My grip on my own mind. I was becoming the thing I cleaned up after. Saturday, 11 p.m. Mercer's scrapyard on Route 9, 3 miles outside town. Gus had gone home hours ago, but he'd given me a key years back. Never asked why I needed it. Never asked why I came here to sit in my truck and stare at crushed cars. That's the thing about Gus. He understood that some men need a place to fall apart where nobody's watching. The crusher ran on a timer, flattening cars into compressed cubes every few minutes. Crunch. A sedan, used to be blue, I think, became a metal rectangle, stacked with the others, indistinguishable. I watched, hypnotized. My marriage, crushed. My sense of self, crushed. My future, stacked with other failures, waiting to rust. I thought about confronting Linda, just walking in, laying out everything I knew, demanding answers. My stomach knotted. Confrontation leads to anger. Anger leads to violence. I'd seen the bedroom walls on Maple Court. I knew where that road ended. I am not that man. But I could feel him in there, somewhere, waiting. Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. Marlene's voice was tight, controlled, her dispatcher tone, the one she used when she had to deliver bad news to families. "Hank, she filed. Friday morning. I just got confirmation from a contact at the courthouse." I sat down slowly on my back porch. The wood creaked under my weight. "What's she asking for?" "Everything. The business, the house, 50% of all assets. She's claiming you were an absent workaholic who emotionally neglected her." I laughed, but it came out hollow, empty. "There's more," Marlene continued. "She has a witness lined up to testify about your unstable behavior, a financial advisor named Derek Ashworth. He's been counseling her through your difficult marriage." The name landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading outward. "Counseling her," I repeated. "That's what the filing says." I thought about the hotel receipt, the parking stubs, the cologne on Linda's clothes. Counseling. Right. Monday morning, After Linda left for work, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open. Derek Ashworth, Pinnacle Wealth Management. The professional photo showed a man in his early 40s, clean-shaven, expensive suit, manicured hands that had never touched blood or industrial cleaner or anything harder than a golf club. His smile was practiced, the kind they teach you in sales seminars. Office address, downtown, 2 blocks from the parking garage whose stubs I'd found in Linda's purse. Everything clicked into place. I waited for the rage, the burning, all-consuming anger I'd felt in that bedroom on Maple Court. It didn't come. Instead, something colder settled over me. Clarity. Focus. The same calm I felt walking into a crime scene. The analytical detachment that let me do my job without breaking down. Blood tells a story. People just forget I'm listening. I started listening. That afternoon, I called Theo Brandt. She filed, I said without preamble. I know. Theo's voice carried something unexpected, satisfaction almost. Patricia Kellerman sent over the papers this morning. Hank, we need to talk about your business structure. What about it? Every license, every OSHA certification, every EPA permit, they're all in your name personally. The LLC operates under those licenses. Without you, there is no clean slate. I processed this slowly. So she can't just take it? She can claim the business value as marital property, but she can't operate it. She doesn't have the certifications. Neither does anyone she could hire without months of training and testing. A pause. The business is you, Hank. Legally speaking. Your wife's attorney is about to find that out the hard way. I sat back in my chair. The kitchen was quiet. Morning light slanted through the window, catching dust motes in the air. What about the house, the other assets? Those are negotiable. But your business? I could hear Theo smile through the phone. That's yours. Period. Tuesday evening, I drove past Pinnacle Wealth Management. Not stalking, just looking. Derek's silver Audi sat in the reserved parking spot. Personalized plates. DRKWLTH. I almost laughed. The ego on this guy. I parked across the street, engine idling. Watched the entrance. At 6:15, Derek emerged. Phone pressed to his ear, laughing at something. His suit probably cost more than my monthly equipment budget. His hands were soft and pale, the hands of a man who'd never scrubbed blood off a wall or lifted a body bag. Tuesday morning, I spread the documents across the kitchen table before the sun came up. Business licenses, OSHA certifications, EPA permits. Every single one bore the same name, Henry Hank Duval. Not Hank and Linda Duval. Not CleanSlate Biohazard Remediation, jointly owned. Just me. My coffee went cold while I photographed each page. The camera flash lit up the dark kitchen in stuttering bursts. Upstairs, Linda slept, probably dreaming about the money she thought was coming. I've been photographing evidence for years, crime scenes mostly, the placement of objects, the spray patterns, the way a body falls tells you everything about how it died. These documents told their own story, 11 years of marriage, and she never once asked to see the paperwork. She thinks the business is ours. I set down my phone, stared at the stack of papers, but she never read a single page. Later that morning, I met Theo Brandt at a diner out on the county line. 40 minutes from town, the kind of place where truckers stop for eggs and nobody asks questions. Theo spread the documents across the sticky table. 47 credit card statements from the Chase Sapphire ending in 4491. Hotel records from the Bellamy Inn, room 214, $189 per night, 14 separate visits. Text message printouts I'd pulled from the family phone plan. This is thorough. Theo looked up at me, genuinely impressed. The hidden accounts alone show intent to deceive. She opened this card in her maiden name, Hank. Linda Fitch. That's not an accident. I stirred my coffee, didn't drink it. What about Derek's involvement, the licensing board? Theo nodded slowly, tapping the stack of papers. I'll draft the cease and desist today. His fingerprints are all over this scheme. He's been advising her on how to value the business, how to structure the divorce filing. Well, it's not illegal exactly, but it raises questions about his professional conduct. Sunlight streamed through the greasy windows, catching the dust motes floating between us. She thinks she's getting $423,500, I said quietly. Half the business. She's getting the house, some personal assets, maybe $30,000 once it all shakes out. Theo closed the folder. The business licenses are non-transferable. They're professional certifications issued to you personally. Without them, CleanSlate is just trucks and equipment, worth maybe a tenth of what she's claiming. I finally took a sip of my coffee, cold, bitter. She never understood what she was trying to take. That afternoon, my phone rang. Gus Mercer's gruff voice cut through the static. Heard through the grapevine your wife's been talking to my accountant's wife. A pause. The sound of metal crunching in the background, the crusher working. Saying she's about to come into some money. Half a business, she said. Gonna be set for life. I watched a crow land on the CleanSlate van's side mirror. It pecked at its reflection, confused by the enemy that wouldn't back down. She's mistaken about what she's getting, Gus. A long pause, more crushing sounds. Then, you need anything, Hank? Anything at all? You know where to find me. The loyalty of men who work with their hands, who understand that some things can't be bought, can't be faked, can't be taken away just because someone decides they deserve what you built. I know, Gus. I know. Wednesday. Fentanyl overdose in a motel bathroom on Route 9. The victim was young, maybe 25. Blue lips, foam residue around his mouth, the needle still on the floor beside him. His mother waited outside, smoking cigarettes with shaking hands, unable to look at the door. I moved through the cleanup with practiced efficiency. Bag the sharps, treat the biological material, scrub the surfaces, document everything. But my mind ran parallel calculations. Tomorrow, Linda meets with Patricia Kellerman to finalize her divorce filing. She expects to walk away with half of everything, the business she never understood, the assets she never helped build. She'll receive the house instead, the car, her hidden accounts which aren't so hidden anymore. My phone buzzed. Theo confirming the documents were ready. The bathroom smelled like industrial bleach and wasted potential. I finished the job, signed the completion form, and drove to the next scene. Thursday evening, I drove past the house. Derek's silver BMW sat in my driveway. Personalized plates, DRKWLTH. I'd laughed the first time I saw them. The ego on this guy. I parked 3 blocks away, engine idling. Called Carla. My sister's voice was worried. You okay? You sound strange. I watched the house lights through bare November trees. The kitchen window glowed yellow. 2 silhouettes moved inside, comfortable, casual, like they belonged there. I'm fine. Just confirming the books are clean on our end. Everything documented. Triple checked. Carla's voice steadied, shifting into business mode. Every contract, every payment, all in your name, all legitimate. If they try to claim you hid assets, we've got paper trails going back to day 1. I thanked her, hung up. The BMW gleamed under the streetlight. Derek was probably drinking my beer, sitting in my chair, sleeping in my bed. Tomorrow. I do this tomorrow. Friday morning. One last job before the confrontation. Suicide in a garage. Carbon monoxide. The family watched from the kitchen window as I worked, their faces pale smudges behind the glass. I noticed details automatically. The man's wedding ring, recently removed. You could see the tan line. Divorce papers on the workbench, unsigned. A photo of children on the wall, faces scratched out with what looked like car keys. Some men break when their lives collapse. They turn the pain outward, murder-suicides, violence, rage, or they turn it inward. Either way, someone ends up calling me. I bagged the contaminated materials, scrubbed the surfaces, restored the space to something livable for the family that remained. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Linda. She was nervous about something. Maybe she'd heard rumors. Maybe Derek was getting cold feet. Maybe she was just starting to realize that things weren't going to go the way she'd planned. Good. Let her wonder. Let her feel a fraction of what I felt, standing in the garage at 2 a.m., holding a hotel receipt for a room I'd never seen. Tuesday, August 3rd, 6:47 p.m. I finished the motel cleanup, another overdose, another young life ended, and drove home still wearing my work boots. The Tyvek suit was stripped off, bagged, disposed of properly, but the smell of industrial disinfectant clung to my clothes, my skin, my hair. Derek's BMW sat in my driveway. I parked on the street, checked the manila envelopes on my passenger seat. 2 of them, crisp and official. Theo's work. My heart beat steady. 62 beats per minute, I'd counted. The same heart rate I maintain at crime scenes. The same calm I feel when I'm cutting out contaminated drywall or bagging biological waste. I stepped out of the truck. The evening air was warm, humid. Crickets sang in the bushes. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and went quiet. I walked toward my own front door like a stranger. The kitchen. Linda and Derek stood at the island, wine glasses in hand, laughing at something on Derek's phone. The bottle between them was a Cabernet I'd been saving for our anniversary. The glasses were the good crystal, wedding gifts from her mother. They froze when I appeared in the doorway. Linda's face cycled through emotions. Shock first, pure animal surprise. Then fear, quick and sharp. Then calculated composure, the mask sliding into place. "Hank," she set down her wine glass, started moving toward me, hands raised, already constructing the lie. "I can explain." I raised one hand, just raised it, palm out, nothing threatening, nothing aggressive, and she stopped. Because despite 11 years of marriage, despite knowing I've never raised a hand to anyone, she's still afraid of what I could do. What a man my size could do if he lost control. She doesn't understand. I would never. That's the difference between us. Silence stretched. Derek set down his wine glass with a soft clink. His hands, soft hands, financial advisor hands, hands that have never scrubbed blood from concrete or carried a body bag, were trembling slightly. "Look, Hank," he started. I reached into my jacket, pulled out 2 manila envelopes, handed one to Linda, one to Derek. "Open them." My voice was calm, almost gentle, the same voice I use with grieving families when I explain what the cleanup process involves. Linda tore hers open first. Her eyes scanned the divorce papers, the itemized list of her hidden Chase Sapphire account, the hotel receipts from the Bellamy Inn, the documented timeline of her affair. 14 months, 47 statements, every lie cataloged. Her face went white. Derek read his cease and desist, the notification to the state licensing board about potential ethics violations, the detailed documentation of his involvement in the divorce scheme. His wine glass tipped, spilled red across the white counter like arterial spray. I spoke clearly, without raising my voice. "The business is mine. The licenses are mine. CleanSlate biohazard remediation. Every certification, every permit, every contract, registered solely to Henry Duval." I paused, let that sink in. "You get the house. I don't want it anymore. You get your clothes, your car, your hidden accounts. But you don't get my work. You don't get what I built." Linda's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Hank, you can't. The lawyer said, Patricia told me." Patricia told you what you wanted to hear. I looked at Derek, whose face had gone gray. And you get her. Good luck. The words hung in the kitchen air, mixing with the faint smell of disinfectant from my clothes and spilled wine from the counter. I turned toward the door. Hank, wait! I didn't wait. 3 years later, November 2027. CleanSlate has 4 trucks now, 12 employees, contracts with 3 county morgues and 2 hospital systems. We're the largest biohazard remediation company in the region. I married Marlene Voss last September. She works dispatch at the county morgue, understands death, understands the work, doesn't flinch when I come home smelling like someone else's tragedy. Our house is modest, clean, filled with comfortable silence and the smell of coffee brewing. Gus Mercer's scrapyard still sits on Route 9, 3 miles outside town. But now when I visit, I'm thinking about expansion plans, new equipment, maybe a training facility for the next generation of cleaners. Not escape, not pain, just thinking. Linda still lives with Derek, that 740-square-foot apartment at Ridgeline Commons. His financial planning business collapsed after the licensing board investigation uncovered other irregularities. Clients he'd steered wrong, fees he'd hidden, corners he'd cut. She works retail now, from what I hear. Department store, commission-based. She got $31,000 in the divorce settlement. The house sold for less than she expected. Turns out the foundation had problems I'd been meaning to fix. Derek's dreams of acquiring a biohazard remediation empire died the day he opened that manila envelope. This morning, a new job came in. Financial advisor's office downtown. Embezzlement discovered, clients ruined. The man took his own life rather than face consequences. I work methodically, cleaning blood from the mahogany desk, bagging contaminated documents. The nameplate reads someone else's name, but it could have been Derek's. Same profession, same greed, same ending eventually. Some men build, some men take. The takers always think they're smarter than the builders, right up until the foundation crumbles. I pack my equipment, sign the completion form, drive home through autumn darkness. Marlene meets me at the door, coffee already brewing. She doesn't ask about the job, doesn't need to. She just hands me the mug and kisses my cheek and goes back to her crossword puzzle. Some messes clean themselves up eventually. You just have to be patient and keep working. Always keep working.